Well, over the last few weeks, I have been drinking some fantastic coffee, and I wanted to share them with you before I finish them off. I'm down to the last couple of cups in each bag, and I just thought I'd tell you about them before I finish enjoying them for a couple of reasons. And one of those reasons I'm going to get into a little bit later. But to start off, I just wanted to say that the main reason I'm sharing these with you is that someone sent me a little gift and some money, and she told me that she wanted me to buy some coffee with that gift. And because she was so generous, I bought a couple of bags to start. Actually, she's bought me a couple of more bags because she was so generous with that gift. So these are the two bags I started with, and like I said, I've been drinking them for the last few weeks now, and they are really, really good, especially because I have been drinking some cheaper coffee, and since Judy was so nice to me here and told me specifically that she wanted me to buy coffee, I splurged on one of these bags, and the other one I bought on sale. Now, this isn't the first time someone has sent me a little gift in cash and told me to buy coffee with it. And I am always happy to follow the instruction that I'm given when someone tells me to buy myself some coffee. So I was very happy to go ahead and go coffee shopping somehow. I'm not quite sure how, but Judy knew that I was almost out of coffee and that I needed to go buy some more. So her timing was impeccable here in this case. And I should mention too that Judy told me that I should buy some whipping cream for my coffee as well, because she knows that that is my favorite addition to coffee, and it's what I usually use for the last few months anyway, is what I usually use is whipping cream. So I did buy myself some whipping cream, so I just want to mention that so that Judy knows I did follow her instruction to the letter. But we're not really going to talk about the whipping cream because that's not terribly exciting. What I think is a little more interesting are these two bags of coffee. And that is because these two bags of coffee are very similar in a lot of ways, and yet they are very different as well. Now, both of these coffees are from small roasters in the Seattle area, and you probably have not heard of either of these roasters unless you live very close to Seattle. They are small companies that don't produce a lot of coffee, and so they don't sell too far beyond the Seattle area. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about here is Middle Fork Roasters, and this is an Ethiopian blend of coffee. I have had this coffee before, although it's been a few years, and I just couldn't really remember what it tasted like, and so that was the reason I went ahead and bought this bag. Also, it was on sale at one of the local grocery stores that I was parked near when I got this gift. So it made an easy choice. I do remember that I liked it when I had it in the past, but I didn't really remember the taste of it. So I was happy to try this again and kind of refresh my memory of it. The other bag of coffee is from Kuma Coffee, and this coffee is another small roaster, like I said. This is also an Ethiopian blend of coffee, and I've never had this coffee before. I've seen it around in a few different stores around Seattle, but I have never tried it. And I actually bought this on a recommendation from one of my favorite little coffee houses out in Port Townsend, Washington. And I started talking to the barista there. I told him I wanted a really light roast coffee, and so this is what he suggested. So we'll talk about this one second, but I'll get into the Middle Fork Roaster first. Now, these are both Ethiopian coffees, but this one is a medium roast coffee, and so it has a much different flavor and texture to it than the other coffee, and that's not saying anything bad about this coffee. Those of you that know me know that I prefer a lighter roast coffee. Now, I bought this knowing full well that it was a medium roast, mostly because as soon as the weather starts to change and it starts to get a little cool out, and there's a little change that happens in my brain that says, I want some darker roasted coffee. Now, I don't want a real dark roast coffee, so medium roast does me just fine. So that's why I bought this. I just thought, with the weather being now cool and wet, this would be a nice change of pace. And I have been enjoying this a great deal. Now, Middle Fork Roasters has several different coffees to choose from at different roast levels. This is their lightest roast. They are known more for a darker roast coffee, so I've never tried any of their other roasts, but this one is very, very good. I really have enjoyed it. Now that I am getting down to the last cup or two here in this bag, I think my taste buds have swung back to wanting a lighter roast coffee, which is what I usually like to drink. But I am really happy that I bought this because the description on the bag is very accurate. They say that it is a jammy flavor coffee, and I would definitely agree with that. Even though it does have a little bit of a darker roast to it, it does have a really fruity taste to it, and it is just incredibly enjoyable. I probably enjoy it a little bit extra too because I'm putting quite a bit of fat into it when I do add the whipping cream. So that kind of smooths out some of that darker charcoaly flavor that I don't really like on the darker roasts of coffee. But definitely have really liked this and have really enjoyed this. Now, turning our attention to the Kuma coffee here, this coffee is much more a style of coffee that I like. This is a light roast coffee, although I told the barista at the little coffee shop that I bought this at that I wanted the lightest roast coffee that they sold, and he said that this was the lightest roast, and I see why when I opened it up. This is almost too light of a roast for me. I like light roast coffee, but this is a very light roast coffee. I am really enjoying it, though. This coffee is got layers and layers of flavor. It's definitely fruity, like the other coffee, but there's a lot more going on, and it's just really intriguing. When you drink it warm, and then wait and drink it a little bit colder, if you can leave your cup a little while and kind of drink it in steps like that, you'll find that the flavor just blossoms out of this coffee. And hot, warm, or cold, this coffee is just spectacular. Now, if you don't like light roast coffee, you want to stay away from this one because, like I said, this is a really light roast coffee. I don't think I've ever had any coffee quite this lightly roasted, but again, I really enjoyed it. Very floral, very fruity, lots and lots of layers of flavor that just make you want a second and third cup. That's one of the great things about light roast coffee is it's not real heavy on your palate, and so if you do want to just splurge and have another cup or two, this is the thing to go for because it's not real heavy. So really enjoying this. Kind of wished I bought a second bag because this is spectacular. One of the best coffees I've ever had, just because it's just so different. I'm just really, really enjoying this. Now, I do want to just point out that I am not a professional coffee person. I'm not a barista. I'm not a coffee roaster. I just know the kind of coffee that I like to drink, and so that's what I look for on the label if I'm buying a bag, say, at the grocery store. I was lucky enough to be able to go to my favorite coffee shop to buy one of these bags and talk to the barista. I just happened to catch him at a time when it wasn't busy in the cafe there, and so he was more than happy to have a little chat with me, ask me what I liked. He had very specific questions that he asked me to try to pinpoint what he would recommend to me. And as far as I'm concerned, he hit it out of the park because he gave me a spectacular bag of coffee. He gave me another couple of choices too, but because I wanted the lightest roast of coffee that they sold, it kind of made it easy for him just to say this is it. But fantastic coffee, fantastic experience. And this kind of gets me to the other point that I wanted to talk about here, And a lot of times I talk about coffee that I buy and I'm enjoying, and I'm really not talking about it to say that you should go out and buy this particular kind of coffee. I mean, if you're around Seattle and you can find a bag of Kuma coffee or Middle Fork Roasters wherever you're shopping, certainly pick up a bag. But that is kind of my point, is that you want to buy local coffee, local to where you are. You don't necessarily need to mail order something across the country. My point in sharing the coffees that I'm drinking with all of you is to showcase the fact that there are lots and lots of little small roasters that you may never have heard about unless you're actually in their neighborhood. With these coffees, you may not know of them if you live on one side of Seattle versus the other side of Seattle. And so they are very locally produced and sold coffees. So these are coffees that you might not be able to find readily, but they're fantastic coffees in their own right. And the other half of that fact is you are helping to support a small company that is producing really good stuff. And I think the smaller the company, the better quality the coffee is. And I know I give my little jabs at some of the big companies like Starbucks, and that's all just in jest. Really drink what you like. If you like Starbucks, keep buying Starbucks by all means. But I enjoy the variety of a new flavor of coffee every now and then. And so that's why I seek out these smaller companies. Sure, the big companies like Starbucks and Peet's and all these other companies, yeah, they make a really good, consistent cup of coffee. But if you want something special, you got to search for these smaller companies that are sourcing these beans from really small family-run farms on the other side of the earth and bringing them over, roasting them properly, and selling them to us. And from time to time, they may be a little bit expensive. This bag of Kuma coffee that I have was not cheap. It was over $15. Not something I normally spend on coffee these days, but definitely worth it for a little splurge once or twice a year, as far as I'm concerned. Now, Middle Fork Roasters, the other bag that I bought, you can find that around Seattle in certain stores on sale from time to time, and you can get that for a fairly good price from time to time. I bought this bag for, I believe, less than $9 because it was on sale. So keeping your eyes open for new coffees and coffees that are on sale is really what I'm trying to show when I talk about coffees that I am enjoying at the moment. I do travel more than some people, and so as I'm traveling, I'm picking up different coffees that are only really found in small towns locally, and that is really my point. Look for the small company in your town. You probably have a roaster in your town, or at least in your county or state that you can support and keep going. Starbucks is great for when you're traveling and you just want that consistent cup, but helping out the little company is really what I like to do whenever I possibly can, and I do encourage you to do the same thing if you possibly can, especially if you can find some on sale, or if, like me, you had somebody that was generous and sent you a little money and told you to go out and buy yourself some good coffee. Hopefully you found this helpful, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.